The power went out the exact second Karen plugged her phone into my garage outlet. I'm talking full blackout, sparks, smoke, and a sound like someone tried to puree a lawnmower in my breaker panel. Her scream shot through the cul-de-sac, so loud I swear birds fell out of the trees. Meanwhile, inside, my poor coffee maker sputtered, choked, and died mid-brew, leaving me staring at half a cup of bitterness, already knowing. Yep, here we go, it's gonna be one of those days. Most folks would at least mumble sorry if they fried your power trying to mooch a little juice. Not Karen. She yanked her cord like she was wrangling a snake, stomped up my porch, and hammered on my door with all the subtlety of a repo man. When I opened up, she had her HOA badge clipped on like she was about to raid my meth lab, finger jabbing, accusing me of tampering with the community power grid and threatening to report me for, wait for it, voltage misconduct. I nearly spit my coffee right there. She sounded so official, you'd think she got a law degree in electrical tyranny. I asked, a little too calmly because sarcasm is my blood type, why she was siphoning power from my outlet. She sniffed, lifted her chin, and declared that every outside outlet in the neighborhood was community property per HOA rules, which was interesting considering my name's on the electric bill, not hers. When I suggested she plug in at her own house 3 doors down, she acted like I'd asked her to hike through a minefield. My outlets are indoor only, she huffed, like the idea of walking inside was an affront to her dignity. Right then, I knew 2 things. 1, Karen had declared war. 2, I wasn't going to fight her. I was just going to let her set herself on fire with her own nonsense. And she did. First, she demanded I unlock my garage and give her charging rights under the neighborhood covenant. Then she said she'd find me personally from the HOA treasury, which, last I checked, is not a real thing. When I laughed, she turned fire engine red, stomped off, and came back that night to tape a 3-page official violation notice to my door. Charges included electrical sabotage, hoarding of public power, and, bizarrely, hostile amperage. I honestly considered framing it. Now, her letter was such a masterpiece of fake legal nonsense I almost sent it to a satire magazine. But I kept it, 'cause if Karen was ready to go nuclear over a phone charger, you just know it's gonna get juicy. By the end of the week, my breaker box was a war zone. The HOA was a circus. And Karen? She was about to learn that if you want to play with voltage, you'd better not forget who owns the fuse box. Next morning, 7:12 a.m. sharp, she's back on my porch. In a robe, curlers, clutching a clipboard like it's the Declaration of Independence. Trailing behind are her loyal sidekicks. Jenkins, looking like his eyebrows were stuck in a wind tunnel, and Linda, fresh from yoga and clearly wishing she'd stayed in Downward Dog. Karen clears her throat and informs me, full courtroom drama, that the HOA board called an emergency meeting about she told me it was living law, which, best I can tell, means I made it up this morning. She wanted a $150 fine and proof of grid compliance. I asked if she wanted Elon Musk's autograph. Linda snorted, tried to cover it with a cough. I told them I'd bring it up at the next HOA meeting, which bought me time, and made Karen twitch like she'd just drank a pot of espresso. Everything like a rabid mall cop. I saved that video like a family heirloom. When I showed Jenkins, he was horrified. Karen had told the board the stickers were official, but he admitted there'd been no vote. Her power wasn't real, it was just volume and intimidation. All I had to do was shine a little daylight, and the whole house of cards would collapse. And the perfect opportunity showed up. Karen called a mandatory community meeting about the grid crisis. I came with my USB stick and the video. Karen strutted up to the podium, delivering a speech about communal integrity, waving her hands toward me like I was a criminal on trial. Neighbors shuffled, side-eyed, some rolling their eyes. She finished with a dramatic call to fine me $500 for grid sabotage. I stood, walked to the projector, and hit play. There's Karen, midnight sticker rampage, cursing at my recycling bin. The room erupted. Linda whispered, "Oh my God." Someone yelled, "That's not inspection. That's vandalism." Karen tried to spin it as field research, but nobody was buying it. But just when I thought it was over, Karen yanked out her ace. She'd already reported me to the county for illegal wiring. The inspector would be here within the week. And for the first time, I realized she wasn't just bluffing. She'd gone full nuclear, dragging the county into our circus. Tuesday, the inspector shows up, clipboard, reflective vest, tired eyes. Name's Dennis. I got a report of unsafe electrical modifications, he says, barely glancing at me. Karen's perched on the curb. That's authorized. HOA backup connection. By who? Dennis asks. Me, she stammers. Now Dennis is not impressed. Tampering with a utility box can be a crime. Neighbors start mumbling. Wait. Violation on the spot. The crowd's turned. Now Karen's the outlaw. But she's not done. That night, she calls an emergency impeachment vote to kick me out of community standing, not a real thing. Next morning, I get served. Karen is suing me for emotional distress caused by electrical hostility. Yeah, that happened. So, I call a lawyer. Marissa specializes in HOA nonsense. She's thrilled. Pro-SE plaintiffs are my favorite, she says. We prep the evidence, the midnight video, the Comic Sans letter, Dennis's report. But Karen plasters the neighborhood with flyers, accusing me of systemic sabotage. At the HOA meeting, Karen, blazer and pearls, launches into her speech, calls for my removal. I stand, thank her for her passion. She preens, just for a second. Karen unravels, screams conspiracy, but nobody's listening. Quiet neighbor Susan holds up the Comic Sans notice and asks why it's in Comic Sans if it's official. The laughter is volcanic. Instead of impeaching me, the HOA censures Karen. 2 weeks later, we're in court. Karen, still rocking the blazer and pearls, has a briefcase stuffed with printouts. She delivers her speech, presents a crayon diagram of my hostile outlet. The judge listens, sighs, asks for my response. Marissa just calmly hands over our evidence. The judge watches Karen's midnight rampage, rubs his temples, and finally says, case dismissed with prejudice. He even fines Karen for wasting the court's time. But Karen doesn't quit. That week, I spot her at midnight, setting up a generator in her driveway, extension cords running everywhere, a Frankenstein's lab of plug-ins and air fresheners. Neighbors wander out, gawking. Karen proclaims this is a sanctioned energy redistribution unit. I ask if she really thinks this is safe. She says she's done the math, coming from someone who thinks Comic Sans is a legal font. Then she makes her big move, cranks the generator to max bang. Explosion, smoke, sparks. One air freshener bursts into flames. Silence. Then sprinklers soak her and her masterpiece. Firefighters show up, scold her, shut the whole thing down. The inspector returns, cites her for a dozen code violations. The HOA meets again. This time, they vote Karen out for good. Jenkins is interim president. Karen blasts the neighborhood with one last email rant, promising revenge. But within weeks, she's packing up, a for sale sign on her lawn. On her last day, she just glares at me from her porch. That night, the neighborhood feels free. Kids play, people laugh. I get a letter 2 months later. Karen has to pay my legal fees. I buy the best coffee machine in town and toast my victory. Looking back, it's almost funny, a whole war over a phone charger. Karen tried to drown me in nonsense, but all she did was electrify the neighborhood against her. And sometimes, sipping my perfect coffee in a house wired just right. I remember her last words, "This is not over," and I wonder if she really meant it. Maybe she's out there plotting her comeback. But if she ever returns, well, I'll be ready, with evidence, patience, and voltage strong enough to light up the sky. So tell me, was justice served, or did I go too far? Ever had a neighbor like Karen? Drop your story or your verdict below. I want to know how you'd handle a voltage tyrant in your own backyard.